Hey, Tara, welcome to Gray Team. I just want to give you a quick tour before we get started on our discussion about the importance of sleep. So very quickly, we're standing in the lobby of our incredible facility here at Gray Team. This area is where veterans wait for their individual therapies. Everything is done by appointment, so we typically don't have large crowds standing around. Everyone is assigned a specific therapy for a specific time. As we move through, this is our conference room slash mentorship room where veterans get the type of training that they need in order to survive in the civilian marketplace. We teach them how to write resumes. We give them guidance on how to purchase their first home, how to actually cook and purchase groceries for themselves, and what nutrition is kind of like outside of the military. It's our little kitchen area where I have to give shout outs to Celsius Energy and Black Rifle Coffee for helping to highly caffeinate our veterans so that they can do their best in here. This is our fitness facility. We take veterans through a personal assessment with a physical therapist to find out strengths and weaknesses. If they have injuries, we need to learn workarounds. If they were an amputee coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan, we need to rebalance their body so they get used to their prosthetic. So we can train pretty much in any available therapy or mediation we need. In here is our group fitness room. This is also, you can't tell from the video, but the floor is made out of a specially designed turf. It's very soft. We teach functional fitness in here. We also do Krav Maga, Tai Chi, Qigong, sound healing with sound bowls, group meditation, all kinds of things, as well as just functional balance work, sleds, jump boxes, and things like that with veterans. Moving along. This is an entrance to one of our therapy sections. In here, this is our laser therapy room. This is a full body photobiomodulation bed that has 48,000 laser diodes. I'm going to fire it up real quick so you get an idea of what we're talking about here. This is what you're exposed to for 30 minutes. This is an incredible therapy. It's about 52-year-old science that nobody seems to know about. Very quickly reduces inflammation in the body, drops pain levels down tremendously. It also increases circulation and speeds healing to those areas of the body that need it. So it's incredibly effective for anybody who's injured or had surgery recently, but we use it quite a bit for the damage that we do to veterans' muscles out there on the training floor. We can heal them very quickly so they don't have soreness and regret about coming in that day. On this room, this is a full spectrum infrared sauna with near, mid, and far infrared. We use this for detoxification. It has a flat screen so that veterans can be comfortable, talk on their phone. Has no heaters, just light. We're using light energy, very similar to the room before. And this is very important for detoxification. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, you and I. Moving on. This is our stress reduction room. This is where we basically decelerate the fight or flight signals that a lot of these veterans are stuck in. This is a vibroacoustic electromagnetic induction bed. It's a mouthful, but basically what it does is it bathes the body in sound waves, balancing out all the energy sectors. We have a set of headphones that is all pre-programmed to run a 60-minute course of binaural beats to instantly take a veteran and drop them into an alpha stage, and then their mind will actually drop into theta wave very, very quickly. If they've never meditated before in their life, it takes them down just super, super fast, transcending down to almost an out-of-body experience. And what we found is not only do they get up feeling amazing, but they've gotten like similar to 6 or 7 hours of deep sleep, and they get it in 1 hour. And most of these guys are lucky if they even sleep 15 minutes to 2 hours a night. And usually none of that is deep sleep. And again, we're going to talk about that with the advantages of the Chilipad. So moving on, I'm going to go upstairs now. This is our 3D scanning room. This is where we take a veteran and we stand them here and we rotate this 360 degrees, and we're able to capture, and we make a 3D avatar of their body. We save it in the cloud. We now have measurements of every single diameter of their stomach, their chest, their back, their arms, legs. We analyze their posture. We also can determine how much body fat they have. We can determine how much lean muscle. We're basically not only judging where they are, but where we need to take them. So we can see how much weight, if you can scan down here real quick. These foot pads actually measure how much weight is on their front of their foot, back of their foot, whether their hips are even. So all these things are red flags for us, so we know how to train them in the future to alleviate any discomfort in the back or wherever due to poor mobility or flexibility. Moving along. This is our brain boosting room. Real quickly, because it is being used, I don't want to disturb, but these helmets allow us to penetrate the skull with laser, and that's very, very important to alleviate migraines, also to increase circulation. It's very, very similar to the full body bed downstairs, except that doesn't have enough power on the individual lasers to go through bone. And very importantly, we need to hit the brain if we want to get the same effect. So we can use this in conjunction with the bed downstairs, as well as hyperbaric oxygen to take the pressure off, reduce inflammation in the brain, and speed the healing process through increased circulation. And finally, that takes you to our safe space. And this is a room that we use repeatedly to bring veterans together and restore the community that they typically gave up when they left the military. We host our graduations in here. We have football night, poker night, pool night, and then informal counseling where just a group of veterans will get together and discuss the challenges that they're going through and figuring out what solutions have worked for others. And we don't do any clinical psychology or anything like that, because that is a major turnoff for a lot of these guys. They've had enough of pills and pharmaceuticals, and they're much more interested in actually healing the body naturally and holistically. So, any questions that you have?
No, just an amazing facility. I'm so grateful for everything you're doing. I think the fun part about our groups getting together is the synergy of just what we believe in our hearts is that, it's not about pharma fixing especially when it comes to veterans, but especially on sleep for us, that it's, if we can get you there without having drugs involved, it's just a much better outcome and it lasts longer. And what you guys are doing for veterans is just spectacular. That facility is beautiful. And if I had every dream for you, I don't know if there'd be anything else extra that you would be doing for veterans. It's just amazing. Really special place. Thank you so much for the tour.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. We'll cut here and then we're going to reset up and then you and I can do our Q&A.
Sounds great.
Bring it to you.
Okay.
We have to edit all this parts out.
Yeah, of course. They can edit.
Yeah.
They can probably even make me look handsome.
No,
I haven't been able to fix all of those things myself. If that was as easy as it was, that would be amazing. But no, that's not how the
you good to
video
go?
Maybe we should be recording this on Snapchat so we can put filters in.
Yes. Although I do feel like the world needs to see the real faces. And whenever I have even self-doubt myself, I say, you know what, the real faces are what are real people. And I do feel like, what you're doing for real veterans, real people are what matters most, not the sort of superficial supermodels we see all over the places.
You couldn't be more. I'm joking, of course, but you're absolutely right. And I think that realness is so important, that authenticity, and it's lacking in most of our society right now, and everyone is pretending to be someone they're not, and those people who don't measure up to those standards, even though those standards aren't real, but it gives them a huge inferiority complex, and it leads to depression, because you have an impossibly high bar that you're trying to live up to, and you don't realize that bar is fake. It's people posting on social media of their incredible vacations, and they don't talk about the fight they had with their wife that was throwing bottles and breaking dishes and things like that. You just see this idyllic, they lived happily ever after, and then you go, wow, my life sucks by comparison to that. But it's just not true.
It's not true. But hopefully we'll fix what we can in the world with our partnership. So I'll just take a minute and sort of roll into it, and then we'll start the conversation.
Ready when you are.
All right, so we're now going to have a sit down and talk. We're going to talk a little more about what Gray Team does, and about the role of sleep for veterans, and what we can do to continue to help Gray Team. I'm hoping at the end we can have a little post that if anyone wants to reach out and help support this group, we'll have that in the comments below the video as well. So without further ado, let's talk sleep.
Let's talk sleep. So without an introduction, I'm Kerry Reichbach. I'm a United States Army veteran. I served pretty much all over the world, and my transition back to civilian life was quite rocky. And that's one of the reasons why we are involved today with Gray Team, in order to put together a protocol that doesn't exist yet for the hundreds of thousands of veterans who transition constantly from that military world into the civilian world. And because it is so difficult, they end up turning to suicide because they feel like there's no way that they can fit in.
Yeah, and as a, you think of the ultimate travesty is these men and women that have given their lives, they've found community, they found their place in the military, but then when they leave, they're kind of left to just drift, and that drifting, as you mentioned, results in way more suicides. And I know you talked about the statistics, and I think hearing that is just so powerful to me. Of, we talk about when we lose men and women in service, and that is absolutely a tragedy. But compare that with our suicide rates, because I think that comparison for me just almost catches me in the throat of, we're not losing more people in the service when they're actually serving. We're losing them afterwards in suicide.
You couldn't be more right, Tara. The numbers are really crazy when you think about it, and has been proven to be, it's about 4.5 times more dangerous for a service member to return to the United States and try to fit back into what we call the civilian world, rather than stay in combat with enemy trying to kill you every day. And that's a statistic that just is mind-boggling. And it's it's a reflection of the fact that we take our young high schoolers and we paint this amazing image of what the United States military is, and you get to go to college, and your every need is going to be taken care of. And we have to recruit these young people because their bodies are strong, their minds are strong, and we need them to build that wall around our democracy and keep, the predators around the world at bay. And it's very, very important that we continue to do that. But in order to do that, in order to take a high school student and turn them into a warrior, a trained killer, we put them through, I think it's safe to say, an indoctrination program. We don't want to call it brainwashing because that's a little extreme, but basically we're going to take a docile high school kid and turning him into a warrior in about, anywhere from 16 to 24 weeks. Okay. He's separated from his family. He's separated from everything he knows. And he's put into a culture where he has to learn a new language, new acronyms, new traditions, new everything. So they absorb all that because obviously we can do that when we're 17, 18, 19 years old. We're like a sponge. And we take you and bring you over into a combat environment. You have this innate survival skill that you begin to pick up. You begin to mistrust anyone. A lot of people don't realize that the global war on terror is very different than, the World War I or World War II or Korea, where you had people in uniform and they were easily identifiable as your enemy. And that's when your anxiety kicked in and your defense mechanisms is when you saw that enemy's uniform or that enemy's aircraft. In the war on terror, we don't have that luxury. And interestingly enough, anyone you see could be a potential threat to you, whether that's man, woman, or child. And many of our soldiers and Marines have been killed by children who didn't know that they had a bomb vest on, and they could easily infiltrate and get close to a group of U.S. service members, and they are exploded, and will kill 5 or 6 of our troops, of our sons and daughters. So we begin to mistrust anybody who's not wearing the same uniform we are. And that's a great skill to have. It's going to keep us alive over there. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't allow us to transform back into that civilian world. So when we come back, the same thing that kept us alive is going to kill us now, because we don't want to be around people. We don't want to, we mistrust everyone. We want to isolate. We get horrible sleep because we've been trained to operate at night, where we have a technological advantage against the Taliban or ISIS, you know, because we can see at night, we have technology, they don't. So we have completely messed up our entire sleep cycles. We're just at a point where, you know, every skill set that we have is now useless. You know, all those memories and new languages and things that we learned, we don't need any of them anymore, but we can't figure out how to delete them like you can a file on your computer. And that's where everything lies. So we come back, and now how do we transform these warriors back into civilians? Well, there was a 16 to 24 week course that all of us went through to become a warrior, but there is no course for you to decelerate back into a civilian. It's never even been thought of. And so now that's why we have this suicide rate, because how do we undo that? How do we make you unsee the things you've seen, and how do you undo the things that you've done?
Yeah, and you know, I think you and I've talked about it. It falls outside. Everyone sort of, when I have conversations about veterans, everyone's like, "Well, the VA takes care of them, right?" And you know, I think it's really indicative of healthcare today. Is, you know, if it's an obvious, you know, broken arm or broken leg or prosthetic, yeah, the VA does do that part. But the mental health of these people, the ongoing sort of physical wellness, falls outside of that guideline and that protocol, and that's really where, in my opinion anyway, Great Team is doing an amazing job of kind of being that catch-all part, being that course on how to train you to be well. Because as you said, what is defined as being amazing outside of the civilian world is not amazing once you're back in the US. It's considered everything you're doing is wrong. And what does that do to your mental state and depression? And unfortunately, every mental illness is attached to lack of sleep. So it creates this horrible cycle of, I'm not sleeping, so my mental illness gets worse. All of that tends to progress. And if you have not enough sleep, then you tend to get a mental illness. That comorbidity becomes an escapable sort of space for people, you know, whether it's the rhythm of their body, everything about it is thrown off and you can't escape that cycle. And so that's where you guys, I love the symbol of the triangle for change, and Delta as being, you know, the element for change, is to break that cycle. And I feel like that's where you've really inserted yourselves in breaking all of those bad cycles across the board. And that's why we're thrilled to participate when it comes to sleep, because we believe that if you can break that cycle when it comes to sleep and get sleep, it can help everything along the board. And that's really an exciting place for us to be able to help you guys.
Well, I so appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you understanding, you know, what the battle is, and how we can work together to overcome it. And as you said, sleep is, I have to say, it's probably the most neglected thing that these veterans are facing. You know, they come back and their anxiety levels are so high that they don't get restorative sleep. You know, even if they sleep 5 or 6 hours, which they don't, most of them come in and they say, I'm lucky if I sleep an hour. You know, I sit up all night and I binge watch Netflix, anything that's on, just so that I can take my mind off of memories and reoccurring traumas and things like that. You know, and we're not talking about somebody who's 90 years old. We're talking about a 23, 24-year-old kid who can't sleep. And that's a huge problem, because their body starts to really deteriorate very quickly. So a Great Team, we're very big on elevating the mind and body connection. You know, we don't segregate the two. You can't elevate the mind without using the body, and you can't elevate the body without using the mind. And one of the problems that the VA tends to do is to keep that separate. So for the body, they will do surgeries. They will put on prosthetics if limbs are missing. And if you have a mental problem, they will give you pills, you know, but they're going to treat each one differently, and instead of the holistic approach. And we found that doesn't work. They know it doesn't work, but they're kind of fresh out of ideas. So Great Team was kind of begun as almost a proof of concept. And we now can do what nobody else in the United States can do, including the multi-billion-dollar VA, which is funded by our taxes. They can't do what we can do. So we're really proud of the fact that we've never lost a veteran, and that we've had, almost 500 go through our program to date in the 4.5 years that we have been a nonprofit. And we do regulate everything together. So sleep, how do we fix that? Well, one of the things is we talked about a little bit earlier on the tour, is we have to shut down that fight or flight. Okay, that's ultra important. We have a number of tools to do that. So right away, we're able to increase sleep. But, the fact that most of our metabolisms run hot, that's a huge problem. So the Chilipad, which I have been using long before you and I ever met, is a fantastic addition, because when you study sleep, the first thing you realize, the room needs to be very, very dark. We don't want any lights. We don't want any noises. We can definitely use some white noise generation to kind of drown out any neighbors barking dogs or traffic or sirens that are going off. But what about the temperature? We evolved from sleeping in caves for hundreds of thousands of years in cold, dark environments. And that's the way our bedrooms should be. We shouldn't have televisions in our bedrooms. We shouldn't have LED lighting, which puts out a blue light, which interrupts our whole circadian rhythm. We probably check our voicemail and our phones and our emails before we go to bed, and we're subjecting ourselves to blue light, and it's trash light. It's the worst thing. It's stimulating the brain to actually wake up, because that's the same blue light that the sun puts out right at dawn. And we have been trained for hundreds of thousands of years of evolution that when we see that light, cortisol increases production. And when the cortisol hits our brain, we're awake. So looking at your phone right before you go to sleep is a horrible idea, but we all do it. And then the temperature. So how do we keep our temperature constant? The Chilipad is a fantastic invention. And I'm so surprised, that it took you guys to think of that, because it should have been thought of 40 years ago. It's an amazing invention.
Yeah, I think it's what's interesting about sort of the evolution of going back to that sleeping like a caveman is that we forget where sleep falls in our evolution. So when you look at simple organisms and you look at sort of the evolution of sleep, we evolved to sleep to have that rest period before we actually evolved our prefrontal cortex or even thinking part of our brain. Most simple organisms, they all still have this on and off, and rest is supposed to be like intervals. So you think about interval training, and it's really powerful to have that work hard and rest, and our body needs that rest part, but it is actually unconscious. It is part of the evolutionary old part of our brain and our brain stem. And so using temperature, using light, using those cues that for us don't involve that prefrontal cortex is really brilliant for those people that are struggling with mental health. And so it's a way that you can cue your body that it's time to sleep, to stay asleep. Temperature in particular is really good once you've fallen asleep. That colder temperature is going to drive you to stay not just in that REM light sleep that happens, and it's very predominant. If you look at people with depression or PTSD, they really struggle to get any deep sleep. They stay in that sort of REM awake state. By being able to get colder, it's cueing your body past all of that mental turmoil to cool down, to get colder, to get that restorative sleep. And so it's a magical way. And honestly, when we invented it was a little bit more about just being cooler, sort of that metabolism that you talked about, like, oh, I'm hot and sweaty and gross. And Todd, my co-founder and husband, always slept really hot. We were always at different temperatures, but it's really more than that. The science of it kind of got lost when we moved indoors, and we like being at a constant temperature, but that outdoor experience is really special to our bodies, and our circadian rhythm looks just like an outdoor temperature map. It's gonna, as dusk comes, it's gonna want to go colder in the middle of the night, and that's sort of how we got used to it. And really, it's the last 50 years that we've gone to this constant temperature in our houses and work. Even the structures we lived in past caves weren't, regulated to this one temperature. It would still sort of heat up and cool down as we went throughout the day. And so we're really used to sort of that mostly outside life, and our lives today have moved mostly inside. And when you combine that with mental health, where you just want to sit inside during the day watching TV because you're depressed and you're trying to escape those memories, escape those thoughts, we're not getting outside enough and doing all the things that can help us. So yeah, we're thrilled that it turned out the way it did, science-wise. Sort of a hidden silver lining from what we've created, but it is really magical, and it is probably a biggest part of my why when I think about changing sleep for those veterans, and have had multiple times of giving talks to veterans, and then afterwards just really, those guys and gals, being able to sleep is just that first step to recovery, because your mind when you're sleeping is just so much easier to fix and to improve, and your diet, your fitness, all of those other objectives can fall in line when you're rested and you've got more willpower and you can think straight.
100%. It's right up there with nutrition and exercise. I mean, those are the three pillars that we constantly talk to veterans about. It's sleep, it's nutrition, and it's movement, it's fitness. And without any one of those, the whole system breaks down. So for those that don't know, the Chilipad is an incredible invention. It actually draws the heat out of your body. I have a very high metabolism. I'm constantly, if I eat too late at night, my body temperature is elevated all night, and I wake up in an incredible sweat, and it's just a horrible feeling. Your body actually brings you out of that deep sleep because you're so uncomfortable, and you wake up and you're just dripping, and it's just, it may take 10 minutes, it may take an hour to get back into that rest mode. And I don't do that with the Chilipad. The Chilipad is actually, it just fits under my mattress pad, for those that you don't know, and it draws the heat. I can set it to a specific temperature, and I did have to find that temperature, so there's some experimentation to what your body needs, and for me it's rock bottom. So as low as it'll go, that's what I use it on. And it's consistently that temperature, and I can't tell you how important that is. There is another factor that we're really excited about at Great Team, that Chili is coming out with a weighted blanket that will actually run that cool water to sink the heat out of the body. And one of the issues that veterans face is we typically want to have, when we do sleep in combat, we have what are called plate carriers. We're wearing body armor, and we have steel plates. We have panels that will deflect or repel bullets or fragmentation or what have you, and those things actually provide a sense of security. That weight is always on your body, and it sounds horrible, and it certainly isn't great for our backs or anything like that when we're walking or running. But when you're laying down and resting, there's a comfort for having that weight. And in the past, if you went to a weighted blanket or a heavy comforter, which most of us really enjoy being underneath, the heat buildup is tremendous, and you're never going to get more than an hour's sleep. So I think that having a weighted blanket that will actually pull the heat off your body, so you still get the cocooning effect of the weight without the heat, is just, it's sliced bread.
I know, we'll have to get you set up, because I think that you're going to find that with the weighted blanket, and it does have that cooling and heating part about it, but you can sandwich it. So when you have the pad below you and the weighted blanket on top of you, for a lot of people, that is the magic sandwich of feeling, that weight. And as someone that has struggled with depression and mental illness myself, the weighted blanket works magically for anxiety. It seems like it's like you look at it and you're like, how can that really work? But if you think about it in terms of like bundling a baby, when we swaddle ourselves, being closed back in the womb, we want to be kind of squishy together. And it actually draws out all of those innate sort of genetically driven to be sort of bundled up and to have that weight on top of us. So we naturally get a serotonin release that helps against that, combat that anxiety. And so it is sort of a magical thing. It's talk to people all the time, like, does that really work? It seems really simple. But weighted blankets are a pretty simple, again, no drug. It's not going to hurt you way to get great sleep, to reduce that anxiety. And it does help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer, we find as well.
Well, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about our partnership. Our veterans are very excited, especially about your giveaway, because many of them have no knowledge of any of this kind of stuff. So just the fact that we're bringing it to the forefront is very important, because they may not immediately go out and pick up a Chilipad, but understanding the importance of sleep is just exponentially going to promote their healing process. So I can't thank you enough for your help with what you're doing for America's veterans. And I'm really looking forward to a long-standing partnership. And I think that your company is right on the forefront of pushing a healing that is not tied to ingesting some type of a pill. And that's exactly what Great Team stands for. And I couldn't imagine a better partner.
No, I have to agree. And so on a last shout out, because I'm always on a mission, when I work with veterans, every chance I get to kind of talk about, it's very timely. We're going to announce and do this on Veterans Day and do the giveaway, but it's really important that Great Team's work doesn't end and start on a couple days a year when we think about our armed forces. And so it is an everyday, you're in the trenches. This is, working with people day to day. And so if people want to give to the Gray Team to make donations, how do they go about doing that? And we can include links at the bottom after the video as well.
Well, it's a great question. I appreciate you bringing that up. So Great Team is 100% supported just by the community. We're the only nationwide nonprofit that is not funded by the federal government in any way, shape, or form. So it's companies like you that are responsible and patriotic, as well as communities and individual donors that keep us afloat and allow us to continue our mission. So if anybody is interested in contributing to Great Team or helping us in any way, whether that's offering products or services or financial help, they can go to greyteam.org. That's greyteam.org. And right there, they can donate there. They can donate on Facebook. They can donate on Instagram, what have you. They can certainly even send in an old-fashioned written check and with a stamp on it that I think is still acceptable by the post office.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I do. That's a huge shout out, because it's a really worthy cause. You guys got to see a tour of their facility. Again, what you guys are doing is just remarkable. So just a huge shout out tomorrow for Veterans Day and every day. Really appreciate what you guys are doing, and appreciate you opening your door for us to come in and get a tour and participate.
Thank you, Tara, and all the best. Happy Veterans Day to you and yours, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye-bye.